The woman was splitting wood when Eli Turner first saw her. Not neat work, not clean swings. Each strike was fueled by stubborn anger, the axe biting crooked into frozen pine. Her breath came out sharp and white, hair loose from its braid, dark strands whipping across her face in the high country wind. Eli reined his horse to a stop at the tree line. Late November. Too late for lone women, too late for unfinished homesteads, too late for mistakes, yet there she was. The cabin behind her was barely standing, four walls, uneven logs, chinks stuffed with moss and mud. No smoke from the chimney, no tracks besides her own, no sign of a man. That alone made Eli uneasy. He'd buried enough neighbors to know what the mountains did to people who underestimated them. She noticed him only after the axe stuck in the log and refused to come free. She tugged once, twice, then froze, hand on the handle, eyes lifted, sharp and assessing. She didn't scream, didn't wave, didn't reach for a rifle, though Eli clocked the way her weight shifted, ready. He dismounted slowly, making a point of keeping his hands open. "Afternoon," he said. Her voice came back rough, guarded. "You're on private land." "So are you," he replied evenly. "Unless you moved a mountain while I wasn't looking." She studied him like a jury studies a guilty man. "You here to run me off?" she asked. "No," he glanced at the sky, low, bruised clouds rolling in from the west. "I'm here because winter doesn't care about pride." She finally yanked the axe free and rested it against her boot. "I didn't ask for help. I didn't offer charity." That earned him a flicker of something, surprise maybe, or interest she didn't want. He stepped closer, eyes scanning the place. The door hung crooked, the roof sagged inward, the firewood pile was half what it needed to be. "You won't last January like this," Eli said quietly. "Storm hits hard up here." She crossed her arms, axe still within reach. "I've lasted worse." That's when he noticed the scar. It ran across her collarbone and disappeared beneath her shirt, jagged and pale, like something torn open and poorly healed. Fire, he guessed, or a knife. "Name?" he asked. A pause. Then Maeve called her. "Eli Turner, I run trap lines east of here," she snorted. "Figures. What does? Only men still wandering these hills are the ones with nowhere else to be." He didn't argue. Truth didn't bruise him anymore. Another gust of wind slammed into the cabin, rattling the door loose on its hinges. Maeve flinched despite herself. Eli made a decision he knew better than to rush. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said, "at first light. I didn't agree to. I'll bring nails and a saw that isn't missing half its teeth." He mounted his horse. "You can tell me to leave then." She watched him ride away, jaw tight, fists clenched. When he disappeared into the timber, Maeve sagged against the cabin wall, breath shaking. First stranger in 8 months, first chance at survival, and the thing she feared most, hope stirred again, unwanted and dangerous. Eli returned at dawn. Maeve was already awake. She stood on the porch, wrapped in a wool shawl that had been mended too many times to count, watching frost creep along the cabin rails like living veins. The axe leaned where she'd left it. The woodpile had grown by only 3 logs since yesterday. Her hands were cracked, bleeding in thin red lines. She didn't comment when Eli dismounted with a mule behind him, saddlebags heavy with supplies. Didn't thank him either. He liked that. They worked without agreement, the way desperate people sometimes do, no words, just motion. Eli squared the doorframe. Maeve climbed the ladder and hammered shingles, her movements precise despite the cold. He noticed how she never wasted effort. No extra swings, no show. By mid-morning, smoke curled from the chimney. "You built before," Eli said casually, fitting a beam into place. Maeve didn't look down. "Had to?" "Had who?" She hesitated, just long enough to be heard. "Myself." That answer closed the door on questions, but Eli filed it away. He noticed things, the way her tools were cleaned every night, the way nails were sorted by length, the way she flinched at sudden loud sounds but never at proximity. Someone who expected violence, but not from him. They broke for food around noon. Maeve handed him a tin plate of beans and hard bread without ceremony. "You can stop if you want," she said. "I'll manage." "Liar," Eli replied mildly. "You're stubborn, not suicidal." She huffed a laugh before she could stop herself. The sound startled her more than him. She turned away, embarrassed. "You don't talk much," she said. "Talking never kept anyone warm." "My husband talked plenty." The word landed hard. Eli didn't look up. "Where is he now?" Maeve stared into the fire until the flames blurred. "Buried near Ridgewater." "Hero's grave." That didn't fit. Nothing about her fit the shape of a cherished widow. He beat you, Eli said quietly. Maeve's jaw tightened. He taught Sunday school. Eli exhaled through his nose. Of course he did. He drank, she continued. Got angry, said I made him feel small. Her fingers rubbed unconsciously at the scar on her collarbone. The night the house burned, he locked the door. Eli's hand stilled on his cup. I broke a window with my bare hands, she said. Dragged myself out, he didn't. Silence pressed in, thick and heavy. They said I set the fire, she finished. Said no woman walks away from flames like that unless she wanted it. Eli stared at the fire until his eyes burned. Town always needs a villain, he said. Makes their prayers simpler. She finally looked at him then. You believe me? I believe scars, he replied, and I believe effort. You didn't build this place for fun. Something softened in her face, not relief, recognition. That afternoon, snow started early. Not a storm, just a warning. Eli climbed down from the roof, wiped his hands. I'll stay tonight, Maeve stiffened. There's only one bed. I'll take the floor. I don't share space easily. I don't touch without asking. Their eyes held, two people measuring danger in different ways. Fine, she said finally. But if you snore, I'll kick you outside. Eli smiled faintly. Fair. Night came fast. Wind rattled the shutters. The fire burned low but steady. Maeve pulled a book from a crate, its spine cracked, pages smoke-stained. You read, she asked. Slow, he admitted. She opened it anyway and began reading aloud. Poetry, not the fancy kind. Simple words about loss, land, and endurance. Eli listened like a man who'd forgotten what gentleness sounded like. Later, exhausted, Maeve drifted asleep sitting upright, book still open. Her head tipped against the wall, dangerously close to his shoulder. Eli didn't move, didn't breathe. He stayed awake until the fire burned to embers, guarding something fragile he didn't yet have the right to touch. Outside, snow buried the last of her tracks. And somewhere beyond the trees, a horse stood watching longer than it should have. The rider didn't approach the cabin. That was the first sign of trouble. Eli spotted the tracks the next morning. Fresh, careful, circling wide before disappearing back toward the valley. Someone had come close enough to see smoke, to count horses, to notice a man staying the night. Maeve watched his face change when he returned from checking the perimeter. What? She asked. We're being measured. She didn't ask by whom, she already knew. By midday, the wind had shifted, carrying the smell of town with it, coal, smoke, damp wool, judgment. Eli worked harder than necessary, setting beams with force that bordered on anger. You don't owe me this, Maeve said quietly. I owe myself honesty, he replied. And I'm tired of running. That earned a look sharp, curious. Running from what? He didn't answer at first. Then my brother, she waited. He was younger. Quicker with his fists than his thoughts. Eli fitted a crossbeam, hands steady despite the memory. Got drunk one night in town. Started a fight with the wrong man. Maeve's voice was barely a whisper. Did he live? No, Eli swallowed. I buried him, then I left. Let people believe I was no better than him. Were you? He met her eyes. I didn't stop it. That truth sat between them like a third person. By evening, the cabin felt tighter, smaller. The unspoken pressing in. The storm arrived at nightfall, not snow, wind. It screamed through the pines, slammed against the walls like fists. Maeve woke shaking, breath shallow, sweat cold on her skin. Fire, trapped. Nowhere to run. She bolted upright with a cry before she could stop herself. Eli was there instantly, kneeling, hands raised. Maeve, look at me, you're safe. Her eyes darted wildly. She clawed at her collar like she couldn't breathe. He locked the door, she gasped. I can't. You're not locked in, Eli said firmly. Doors open, windows open, I'm right here. He didn't touch her. That mattered. Slowly, her breathing matched his. The panic ebbed, leaving exhaustion behind. I hate this, she whispered. Hate being weak. You're not weak, Eli said. You survived. That's not the same. No, he agreed. It's harder. She slid down until she was sitting on the floor, back against the wall. After a moment, she nodded to the space beside her. Sit, don't crowd me. He did, close enough to feel warmth, far enough to respect the line. My brother used to wake screaming too, Eli said after a long silence. Different reasons, same fear. Maeve leaned her head back, eyes closed. Maybe broken people recognize each other, she murmured. Maybe, he said, or maybe we just stop pretending. The wind howled through the night. By morning, snow lay deep and unbroken, except for one clear set of tracks leading away from the cabin. toward town. The storm sealed them in. Snow fell for 2 days straight, heavy and relentless, erasing the world beyond the cabin walls. The trail vanished. The trees bent low under white weight. Even sound seemed buried. Inside, the cabin held. Every beam Eli had set. Every joint Maeve had sealed with her own aching hands. Proof that work done together mattered. They fell into a rhythm that felt older than language. Maeve cooked what little they had left. Beans stretched thin, flour turned into flatbread. Eli split wood until his shoulders burned, stacking it tight against the wall. At night, they shared the fire. Not touching, not retreating, just there. Maeve read aloud again, voice steady despite the wind shrieking like a living thing outside. Eli listened, learning the sound of her calm, the way she softened certain words like they deserved care. On the second night, the fire dipped low. Maeve hesitated, then reached out and fed it another log. Her hand brushed Eli's knuckles. She froze, he didn't move. After a breath, she didn't pull away either. The contact was brief, accidental. But it rewrote something in both of them. "I don't let men close," she said quietly. "I won't make you," Eli replied. "That's not what scares me." He nodded. He understood too well. Later, long after the fire burned down to coals, Eli took the book from her hands. "Teach me," he said. She blinked. "Teach you what?" "To read better." Something in her face shifted, not suspicion. Something softer, so she did. Her finger traced words on the page. His voice stumbled, rough and unsure, but he kept going. Every word was a small victory. Every correction met with patience instead of mockery. By the third night, exhaustion won. Maeve fell asleep where she sat, her head tipping against Eli's shoulder. He tensed, then relaxed when she didn't flinch. Didn't wake, didn't pull away. He stayed still until his back ached, afraid that moving would break whatever fragile trust had formed. At dawn, light crept in pale and clean. Maeve woke first. She realized where she was and went rigid, but when she looked at Eli, there was no hunger in his eyes, no claim, only care. "Sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," he said. "I'll move." She shook her head once. "Not yet." They sat like that for a moment longer, the world quiet and newly made. Then Eli stood and went to check the door. His body went hard. "Maeve!" "What?" He pointed. Through the frost-blurred window, boot prints cut a tight circle around the cabin. Close, intentional. Someone had stood there long enough to watch, to listen, to judge. The storm hadn't hidden them. It had trapped them together long enough for the town to decide this woman needed to be punished again. They rode to town 3 days later. Maeve insisted. "I won't hide," she said, pulling on her coat, jaw set. "Hiding lets them decide who I am." Eli didn't argue, though every instinct told him this would go wrong. The road down was quiet, too quiet. Elkwood appeared like it always had, low buildings huddled together as if warmth came from closeness. Church bell ringing, smoke rising, eyes already turning. Maeve walked beside Eli, not behind him. That alone drew whispers. They hadn't gone 10 steps past the mercantile when Reverend Holt stepped into their path, flanked by Amos Greer and 2 men who'd never liked Maeve even before the fire. "Eli Turner," Holt called out loud enough for the street to hear. "You've been seen keeping sinful company." Maeve stiffened. Greer smiled thinly. Maeve called her. "Still refusing decent help, I see." "I'm working," she said evenly. "With a man who's not your husband," Holt snapped. "Living under the same roof." The crowd gathered like wolves smelling blood. Eli felt it then, that old tightening in his chest, the need to smooth things over, to survive by shrinking. "It's temporary," he said. "Just work until winter breaks." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. Maeve went very still. "Just work." Greer seized on it instantly. "You hear that? Even he knows it's nothing." "Maeve, you don't need to ruin a good man's name. Come work for me. Room, board, protection." Eli saw her face change, not anger, something worse, understanding. She turned to him slowly. "That's how you see it." Eli opened his mouth, closed it. The silence answered for him. "I won't beg," Maeve said, voice flat. "I won't explain myself to people who decided my guilt before the ashes cooled." She looked at Eli one last time. "Don't come back." Then she walked away, not running, not crying, just done. The ride back to the cabin was the longest of Eli's life. She didn't speak, didn't look at him. When they arrived, she dismounted, grabbed her tools, and shut the door he'd helped hang, closing him out with final, quiet certainty. That night, Eli slept alone in his lined shack. The fire felt cold. The silence worse. He understood too late what he'd done. He'd chosen safety over truth. and in doing so proved he wasn't any braver than the men who'd let her burn. Eli didn't sleep. The night stretched long and bitter, the wind rattling the shack like it knew his thoughts. He sat at the table with a cold cup of coffee and stared at the wall until dawn bled through the cracks. He said just work, 3 words small enough to pass unnoticed, sharp enough to cut deep. He saw Maeve's face again, how something had closed in her eyes, not rage, not tears, finality. By morning, he knew what that look meant. He saddled his horse and rode, not to the cabin, but to town. Sunday service was already full when he pushed open the church doors. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. Reverend Holt faltered mid-sermon. Eli didn't wait. "I'm here to speak," he said, voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "This is not the time," Holt began. "It is," Eli replied, "because I lied in this place." That silenced them. "I said Maeve Calder was just work to me," Eli continued. "I said it because I was afraid of your opinions. Afraid of losing what little respect I had left." He scanned the room. "I was wrong," murmurs stirred. "That woman built a home with her own hands after you burned her with rumors. She survived a fire she didn't start. She asked nothing from any of you." Greer shifted uncomfortably. "I stood beside her," Eli said, "and when it mattered, I stepped away." He swallowed. "That's on me," Holt's voice trembled. "Are you claiming impropriety?" "I'm claiming truth," Eli said. "She's honorable, strong, and she owes none of you an explanation." Silence fell like snow. Eli turned and walked out without waiting for approval. At the cabin, Maeve was on the roof, hammering, finishing the last line of shingles alone. Eli dismounted, picked up the spare hammer, and climbed up beside her without asking. They worked in silence. The rhythm returned, careful, practiced, shared. When the roof was done, Eli sat back, breath steaming. "I told them," he said, "all of it." She didn't look at him. "I told them I failed you," still nothing. "I'm not asking forgiveness," he added. "I know I don't deserve it. I'm asking for the chance to earn back trust with action." She finally turned. "You don't get to decide that," she said quietly. "I know." A long moment passed. "Then I don't need saving. I know that too. But I wouldn't mind a partner," she said slowly, "if you mean it." He met her eyes, equal ground, equal voice. She nodded once. "Then we start again." They climbed down together. Below, wagons appeared on the ridge. Town folk bringing lumber, food, tools, awkward, ashamed, trying. Maeve watched them approach. "Looks like they listened," she said. "Looks like you were right all along." The mountains stood silent as witnesses. For the first time in a long while, Maeve didn't feel like she was standing alone against them.